From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. I don't know about you, but these short midwinter days over the holiday break are when I think of that bag of chili peppers I keep tucked away in my freezer. They've been sitting there since I grabbed them at my neighborhood farmer's market back in the fall, and they're just waiting to be turned into a big, spicy batch of green chili. And the secret ingredient isn't just any old chili pepper either. I'm talking about the Pueblo chili, a source of pride for Colorado chili aficionados like me. So that got me thinking about a conversation I had with Dr. Mike Bartolo. He's a retired Colorado State University agriculture professor and the man who developed the Pueblo chili. As the year comes to a close, we're listening back this week to some of our favorite science-related interviews of 2024. I hope this conversation inspires you to bring some extra heat to your kitchen. Mike spoke with me earlier this year about why chilies are such a point of pride for some people.
Yeah, it always kind of befuddles me why everybody has such a passion for chili, but I think it's because it's so integral to our culture. It's a food that not only provides us with calories, but is so instrumental to a lot of the good memories we have with food and family, and is really weaved through our culture in many ways and through many generations.
Do you think that chili peppers get an outside amount of attention?
I do. I'm kind of an analytical guy, and I look at the numbers, and certainly by Colorado agricultural comparisons, it's very modest in terms of acreage compared to things like wheat or even other vegetables like potatoes, but they get an inordinate amount of attention. It's kind of like the Kim Kardashian of crops. It gets a lot more attention based on its relative amount of impact it has on society. So I kind of feel bad for crops like beans and wheat, corn, and livestock.
Mike didn't set out to create a new variety of chili. It happened by chance. Around 30 years ago, Mike's main focus was researching things like water, nutrition, and pest management in agriculture. But one day, his father brought him an unusual gift, a bag of chili seeds. It had belonged to his uncle, a man named Harry Mosco.
He had passed away a couple years earlier, and while they were cleaning out his garage, they had a leftover bag of chili seed that was the original, what I call the heirloom mirasol meaning looking for the sun in Spanish, chili seed. So this was a variety of chili that had been grown in the Pueblo area for decades and had been carefully selected by farmers in that area over, many, many generations. And he had a bag of that, and it just so happened I had room in my test plots that year to grow some extra chili plants. So I grew 4 extra rows of this chili. And in that population of that original Mirasol chili was one individual pepper plant that looked unique. And that's really where it started. But I saw this one that was a little bit bigger in size, had a little bit different texture to the pod, thicker. And so I began saving the seed from that one individual chili pod. And that took about another 7 or 8 years before I eventually came up with enough seed to release the Moscow variety. And then I just began giving out samples to farmers. I had grown up with a lot of these farmers, related to many of them, and I just gave them samples and said, tell me what you think. And they gave me an honest opinion, and it just kind of took off from there.
I'm curious what makes a Pueblo chili different from other chili peppers. How does it look different or taste different?
Well, everybody will have a certain idea of what the perfect prototypical chili pepper is. And if you're from New Mexico, you might say it's this. And the chili pepper here in Colorado, I think, is a little bit thicker meated. So it has a much heavier body to it. And that holds up very well to the roasting process, which is mainly how it's prepared for different culinary dishes. I think it's got some different flavor overtones. It's got kind of a fruity aftertaste to it. It's just a little bit different, and it's typically a little more pungent or a little bit higher in heat content than their typical New Mexico Anaheim chili. I guess the test is in if people are going to be able to use it and incorporate it into the dishes that they truly love.
New Mexico makes a very big deal out of its Hatch green chilies. So I have to ask, how do you feel about the rivalry with Hatch chilies from New Mexico?
Well, I personally have very good friends in New Mexico, a lot of good acquaintances that are farmers and other researchers. And so, to me, it's good for everybody. Anytime you can get more notoriety for a particular crop, everybody wins out on it. So, the more attention that's given to chili growers, whether it be in New Mexico or Colorado, great.
You mentioned cultivation. What are the ideal growing conditions? And I'm asking for myself. Could I
Mhm.
grow Pueblo chilies in my own garden?
Sure, anybody can grow Pueblo chilies, and Colorado is a great place. We have some challenges with weather as far as storms are concerned,
Right.
but we've got some great, at least in the Pueblo area and many other irrigated valleys, that we've got good irrigation water. We've got great, wonderful, productive soils, and then our climatic conditions, I think, are fairly unique. We got a fairly high elevation, so we get high incidence of solar radiation, good sun. And then we have what I think are some of the best diurnal variations in temperature, which means we get warm days and cool nights. And I think that brings on some unique flavor compounds that really gives the Pueblo chili and the Colorado chili a distinctive taste. It's the same thing that leads to some of the great flavors in Palisade peaches, Olathe sweet corn, and Rocky Ford melons that helps accumulate certain compounds like sugars and other things into the developing fruit. And chili is no different.
Now, Mike likes eating his chilies, but he stressed that he is not an expert on preparing them. So he relies on some friends at his church community in Rocky Ford to act as his test kitchen.
And I also rely on some chefs too. They're a very important part of this process too, because they're seeing things that I can't even begin to see.
What does it mean to you to have created this unique variety of chili pepper, and one that has certainly inspired a lot of passion and a lot of loyalty?
Well, I never do think of myself as the creator, so to speak, of Pueblo chili, because the story of Pueblo chili is really built by many hands. Peppers have been cultivated in this hemisphere for thousands of years by indigenous peoples, and they began to find these plants in the wild and do their own selection process. So it's through generations and eons of time. It's the farmers who came well before I did, my relatives, my grandparents and parents, that cultivated this, and all the other farmers whose multi-generations contributed to that story. And then it's the other end of the story too, where people that have taken the time to prepare the food and have done thousands of meals for their families over the generation.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has contributed a brick into this so-called story of the Pueblo chili. And I don't see myself as any more important or anything different than anybody else. I'll be gone. I'm in my 60s, and one of these days I'm going to be gone, and the story will go on because it's such an integral part of our culture. And I'm hoping other people will continue that legacy that was really handed off to me and to others for a relatively short period of time.
Dr. Mike Bartolo is a retired vegetable crop specialist with Colorado State University Extension. You can read more about his work on the Pueblo chili and check out some of our other favorite science interviews from this past year at KUNC.org. That's it for us today on In The NoCo. And just a note, we're taking a few days away for the holiday. We'll be back with all new episodes starting on January 2nd. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening, and have a happy and safe New Year.